MOSAIC, welcome back. We are so happy to be with you guys again into this moment of worship. And the song that we're going to sing first is called Lion and the Lamb. And what it talks about is that, as it says, he's the lion. He fights for us because he loves us so much. And he's the lamb because he sent down his son to sacrifice himself for us. And, that right there is evidence of, hope. Evidence of power, because we know that he has a victory, and so we don't have to fear. And so as we sing this out, let's just keep that in our minds.
Can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? No one. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? There is no one who can stop the Lord Almighty. Who can stop the Lord?
Fear, the complex emotion that like a storm clouds your mind. These clouds, like a blindfold, preventing me from seeing the light. I could easily untie it, but my sins make me choose not to. Fear, that figure of speech that latched onto my life from a young age. It's always been there, like a shadow it follows me. Light disappears in this shadow of darkness. Fear, it can only grow in the darkness. It doesn't like the light. Therefore, it desperately holds on to that blindfold. We fear so much that in an attempt to run from it, we drag ourselves in deeper. We attempt to run away from our problems. Fear, this is something we need to face head on. It is not a strong figure or something that can physically hurt you. It is simply a weak figure of speech, and yes, it can be defeated. We all fear things, but we shouldn't let ourselves fall for these mind games. You're not afraid of the dark, you're afraid of being alone in the dark. Trust me, you're not alone. You're not afraid of heights, you're afraid of falling. I'm there to push you past the boundaries of the fear gripping your life, to push you past the darkness, to push you past the boundaries of the fear gripping your life, to push you past the darkness that's invading your thoughts, taking your hopes and your dreams and putting them far from your reach. These are the words of fear, spoken through the mouth of a true liar. Fear, you're not scared of it. You're afraid of the realness. Fearful for the first time in your life of something you can't walk away from, and that's a terrifying thought. You can attempt to walk away, but that weight will forever be on your shoulders until you turn back and face it head on. Every step back is a step forward for the devil, and every step forward is a chance for fear to seep back into your life, and all that hard work slowly turns into a fond memory of the past. Unless you spark that flame again, unless you reignite the blaze and the hunger for God and feed the fire of God's presence in your life. So simply, take the hand of God, and like the Apostle Peter, take courage, drop everything and run out to meet Him, walk alongside Him, and follow the path that He has laid out for you. Because when we trust in Him, we find ourselves and discover who God made us to be. The light, it illuminates His words. Jesus said, "Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you." We can stand in the light of His glory fearlessly. With confidence, we can soak in the warmth of this light. Because those cold, those dark and blinded days are in the past, and we must choose to look forward to the future. For He has planned a mighty path for each and every one of us. If this is all true, I want to know Him. I want Him to guide me, letting Him be my hands and feet. The mind is racing to find its way, to find a glimpse of hope, to find the light at the end of the tunnel. My mind, our minds, are foggy with corrupted feelings and thoughts that aren't our own. Our lives will continue to be a balancing act, and we will continue to be sheltered by the blindfolds of fear until we draw our love from God, because perfect love draws out fear. I may be weak, but your Spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you never will.
Unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I ask that in this time, that everyone who's listening knows that they can give whatever's on their heart, whatever's keeping them from you. They can just give it all to you. We'll take it away. Whatever's keeping them from spreading your love, whatever's keeping them from growing closer to you, God, that they just put it in your hands. Lord, you remove any fear, any doubts that we have, only if we give it to you. I pray that all of us know that there's nothing that he can't do. This coronavirus, if we give it to him, he takes it away, Lord. Anything, depression, anything that's keeping you from just his glory, he takes it on. We thank you for that, Lord. I pray everyone remembers that. We thank you for everything you've done and everything you will do, Lord. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Hey guys, so glad that you're watching with us today. I hope you're enjoying our live stream so far, or whenever you're watching this. We are in our second week of our series called Goliath Must Fall. And in our first week, we talked about how Goliath facing David was a big giant. He was twice as big as David, and David was still a kid. Yet God still put him on the front lines. David counted on God to rescue him. He recounted the promises that God had fulfilled in his life, and he walked in with confidence that God would slay the giant for him. And so that's the perspective that we need in our own lives, that God is a giant killer, not us. That is, at the end of the day, for those things that we can't defeat, it's where God shows up and he becomes the rescuer. And so we're going to start talking about some of those specific giants in our lives, starting with fear. Fear is something that we all are aware of. It's something that we're all been through at some point in time. It's something maybe you're even facing right now, or your family's facing right now, or you feel it all around you. It's the fear that got everybody to buy toilet paper, even though we really didn't need it. And in fact, I read a story about a guy who tried to return $10,000 worth of toilet paper the other day. And the question is, what got him to start buying toilet paper like that? Was it fear? Was it opportunity? Was it him capitalizing on everybody else's fear? Whatever it may be, that's what we saw in stores all over the nation. Now, for those of you in California, you know that that's the first time you've seen that, but in Pennsylvania, that was a real regular thing. In fact, I experienced this. If there was a snowstorm coming in, you would go to Walmart and all the milk and all the creamer and all the paper products would be gone, because that's what everybody in Pennsylvania thought that they should rely on. And what they found out was there's actually a psychology of fear that's going on, where people are impulse buying because they want to protect themselves. I've heard this quote once, that fear is a liar. Fear makes you do things that are not necessarily needed. Fear makes you say things that aren't necessary. Fear keeps you up at night and tells you you're not worth it. Fear keeps you up during the day and tells you you can't do it. Fear is what you engage with when you're taking your test and the questions just hit you and you go like, I don't know these answers. Fear is what you face whenever you're talking to your parents and you've done something wrong. The reality is, sometimes fear makes us really do bad things, makes us think awful thoughts, makes us reduce what we can do in our lives, what God is allowing us to do in our lives. Fear prevents us from being honest sometimes. I think there's some things that, if we were to be honest about, could be the root of fear. Some of us, we've been raised in a household full of fear. I mean, maybe even right now you're listening and you're going like, man, for the last month, we've been stuck at home and all I fear is fear. And I want to escape this, but this is the way I was raised. And in reality, there are many generations in the United States that have been raised like that. Could you imagine going through Pearl Harbor in Hawaii and experiencing for the first time? There's probably parents that said, you know what, until this thing is over, no one's going outside. Or during the Cold War, everybody was used to the sirens that would go off, that would warn of an impending nuclear attack. And so people lived in fear.
How can we tell when the atomic bomb may explode? You may be in your schoolyard playing when the signal comes. That signal means to stop whatever you are doing and get to the nearest safe place fast.
Perhaps you've even read about the school shootings. And so even going to school for you sometimes after that was rough. Fear is a part of reality. And maybe you experience fear because your atmosphere is fear. I think another root of fear is maybe an experience you've had with somebody else. Because of a friendship that's gone wrong. Because somebody you trusted put you in a bad situation. Because a family member treated you wrong. Perhaps it's because a teacher said some really hurtful words to you. Or perhaps it's a significant other, a boyfriend or a girlfriend that made you feel less than, and so you're fearful of relationships. Oftentimes, when it comes to the biggest things in our lives, like that affect us emotionally, that put us in a box like depression or anxiety, the depression and the anxiety isn't really what you're going through. What it is that it was a result of fear in your life from the very beginning. That there was somebody who made you think a certain way because of the way they treated you, what they said. Personally, for me, one of that is when it came to friends. For a long time, my friends that I called friends weren't really my friends. And when I learned that, I went into a cloud of fear, where I didn't want to be in a relationship with anybody too deep because I thought that I would be hurt again and again and again. And fear told me that I wasn't worth it. And fear told me that I was unable to build real relationships. Fear told me that nobody really cared. Fear is a liar. Fear is a big giant. And if we don't take it into consideration, if we're not careful about what fear does in our lives, then it can be unslayable. It can become controlling, where every single moment you wake up, to the moment you go to sleep, maybe you don't even go to sleep because fear owns you. And there's an opportunity for you to allow fear to fall. And it starts with this. It starts with recognizing what God's position is. Just like David walking up to Goliath and saying, you know what? I'm a kid. I can't do this. God will rescue me. Perhaps that's your story with fear as well. In Psalm 16, David writes a song about confidence in who God is. And the reality is that fear is faith in the enemy. And what I mean by that is fear is faith in things that are not of God. And so if you put your faith in those things, if you're trusting that those things are going to come true, then fear will be alive and well. But on the other side, confidence in God can lead you away from fear, can put your faith in the right place. And that's what David is discovering as he writes the psalm. And he says this, starting in verse 7, I will bless the Lord who counsels me. Even at night, when my thoughts trouble me, I will let the Lord guide me, because he is at my right hand and I will not be shaken. Fear shakes us. I don't know if you've ever been like me, but I've trembled in the face of fear. I don't like roller coasters. I've tried breaking them. I've tried riding them down and overcoming that fear, but it's not happening. And so sometimes even in the face of a roller coaster or the thought of riding one, I started to shake. And that's what fear does. Whenever we enter that situation where we could get hurt again, where we're going to experience those emotions again, we start shaking and it freezes us. And David in this moment is saying, you know what? If the Lord is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. And maybe the start of your solution to fear, the start of fear falling in front of you is not so much you taking a bold step forward. It's not so much reading more verses, but putting God where he belongs, right next to you on the journey, ahead of you on the journey, and saying, he is at my right hand. The Lord who counsels me, the one that has kept promises over and over again. I will place him in front of me, in front of my feet, and I will not be shaken because he is at my right hand. So what do you fear? What is it that keeps you awake at night? What keeps you from being truly alive? What makes you shake even before you enter a situation? Can you name it? And can you put God in front of it? Can you allow God to step up in front of that and be who he is? The giant slayer. In front of God, fear must fall.
Slaves to the Philistines, and so I think there was, well, I mean, I know there was a lack of faith on their part, and so I feel, I just thought that that was an interesting thought, but slaves to the Philistines, and so
Yeah.
I think there was,
Again, it's a little
there was
obscure.
lack
I
of
just,
faith on
I
their
just
part.
that was one thing that
And
jumped
so-
out at
so
me.
Well, I think it's super interesting to be in a situation where like maybe one person is super confident and super faithful in like what the Lord can do, and everyone else around them is just not there. You know, it's that idea that like sometimes it's the one person who has to like remind everybody else that like God is greater and bigger than whatever it is that they're facing.
Right. I think also it's kind of like faith is like fear is like a testament to your faith,
Mhm.
because obviously God is bigger than everything, and so if you are fearing things that aren't God, then you're obviously putting those things above God,
Yeah.
either subconsciously or consciously, because you're not really thinking that, you know, God has everything in his control. So but then also fear is kind of like a natural feeling, so I don't think that you can say if you have a fear you don't believe in God or you don't have a strong enough faith in God. But I don't know, I think there's two sides to that. That's true.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I just took from that like what my fears are when they asked us. And some of them have been like what we're missing out on right now
Yeah.
and like how that might hinder my future. And so very specifically in this time of like missing out on like graduation and like thinking about next year college and like if we go online or not, but like it's really good to put it into perspective of like God knew that this was going to happen and he planned my future like with this in mind and like knowing that I would go through this and this is just building me up for what I need for my future.
Yeah, I think that that also is a really good perspective to have, especially when dealing with fear. Mostly because you could there's like two main perspectives that I see you could have. One could be you're scared of whatever it is that's scaring you, or fearful or anxious or whatever, which would be the natural human approach. Or like you said, you can see it as this is all part of God's plan, and so however this plays out, that's how it was supposed to play out. And so again, it goes back to God's in control of everything. Like the first song said, what was it? He's King of Kings.
Yeah.
I think that's yeah. Sorry, but I don't know. I just think that you really have to be careful on what perspective you take, especially when dealing with fear or anxiety. That can be controlling, like Miyuki said.
Yeah, I love that that thought you said, Talia, where it's like God had this in this consideration. Like while he may not be the author of the situation, he's definitely. It's like that verse we always want to quote. Like he works everything for his good. And I think when you believe in that, then fear can fall. You know, like when you believe that everything that happens on earth, even though he may not be the author of it, he can take it and make it for his good, his glory and your good, then what do you have to fear? You know, because at the end of the day, you're going to get exactly, if you're following God's footsteps, you're going to get exactly what he desires from that situation. So that's a great point.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And I think a huge part of that too is generally when we're afraid of something or we're fearing something that we don't know really anything about. And a lot of times like it has to do with our future. And a lot of times it has to do with, I don't know what's going to happen. And so walking in the knowledge that God is never caught off guard by anything the way that we're caught off guard by things. Like, I think that's a huge thing is because when we're afraid, it also usually comes with like an element of surprise. And we're like taken aback by things, but God is never surprised by anything because he knows all and he sees all and he plans according to all of those things. So I think that's like a really, really great thing that you mentioned. Like, it was a really good thought.
Yeah. So as we kind of start closing this bit up, taking experience from your own lives, what are some practical things that you've done to put God above fear? Like, have there been, like, I think Talia, you said one, like, hey, you're going into college right now. I know there's some seniors listening that you know, they're going like, I knew what first semester was going to be like. I knew what my summer was going to be like. What is it going to be like now? And you were like, man, I need to put God in perspective and say he already has this planned out for me. But I don't know if there's any other things like that we have done to put God first in front of fear.
I've got an example from like, well, I'll just say it. So all throughout high school, I guess up until maybe the end of my sophomore year, so not all throughout, just the first couple of years. I used to like stress about homework and tests and stuff like that. And it was kind of like in middle school, it didn't really matter, and so I could just breeze through stuff. And then high school came, and like I had to actually, you know, try and do stuff. And so that came with a little bit of stress because I now have to put in way more work than I was used to in middle school. And I kind of got tired of that in a way. Like I was annoyed at being stressed. And so I don't know if this works for everybody, but I prayed a lot and asked God to help me out and just decided that I was going to not be stressed. And then for like the rest of high school, I had like minimal levels of stress, which was really surprising. And my friends would be like, why are you not like stressing out about this? And so I tell them what I just said. And so that really, really helped. One, to make sure I got my priorities right between God and school. But then also it really shows that God is in control. And when you do put him first, you're able to overcome things like school and stress and stuff like that. And so that's how I ended up enjoying high school.
And I'm sure that's going to take you way farther in life too, like not just high school.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. What about you, Jess? Jess, you there?
Sorry, if somebody said something, I missed it because the connection just like totally died. And I was like, is this just me? Am I alone in this world right now?
At least in this world of 4 you were. It was like we were like waiting for you, and I'm.
Well, I was like, do I leave and come back? Like, what do I do?
Oh no, you're back.
I'm back. Hi.
Hi. Okay, so we were just saying like, hey, what are some things that we personally have done in order to put God first when it comes to fear? So, Talia.
Yes, I heard Beth's story. I didn't hear if Talia said anything.
No, Talia's was like I used her high school thing, like
Okay.
the what's going on in the future. So it's your turn.
Okay. So, Kaden, I didn't realize that you were going to say what you said, and you and I have had that conversation before. Because one time, I think I just asked you if you like are generally a stressor, and you were like, "Yeah, no, I used to be, and now I'm not." And you're not the only person that I've heard say that. Our young adults pastor, actually, Justin Haig, told us all recently. He was saying that one day he just decided not to be anxious or stressed about anything. Yeah. And
well, I guess it works.
Yeah, and like for people who struggle with anxiety, we all kind of were like, "What? That makes no sense." And he was like, "No, you just decide." And I was like, "Yeah, just decide." But the way that we have talked about it like in great detail, especially in YA, is that you're never just terrified all of a sudden. You usually take steps to get there, and those things usually come through like anxiety or just little things that you get nervous about or get anxious about along the way. And so one of the things that we have regularly talked about is that like anxiety is a temptation. And to be anxious is a temptation because it's a temptation that leads into fear. And like scripture says, like you're never tempted beyond what you can bear, which is often like misquoted as like you'll never have to deal with anything you can't handle. But really it's like you have power over your temptation or over what tempts you, and you have the ability to turn away from that and rebuke that, and say that and walk in the knowledge that your God is bigger and stronger than this one thing that may be tempting you. And I think when we look at fear and anxiety that way, when we go like that's a temptation that leads me down a road that is not God honoring or that is not going to glorify God by any means at all, then we can, through like our power and the power of the Holy Spirit, like rebuke that fear and rebuke that anxiety, and then choose to live, above that and live in the knowledge that God is who He says He is. So I think that's usually my route is like remembering that anxiety is a temptation that can lead into fear.
Yeah, there's a big part of this where we have to understand that fear is an emotional reaction, right? That has physical consequences, right? Because of the things that you do, but then how much power the mind has to make decisions that overrule those emotions, right? So like when Caden, you're like, you know what, I'm not going to be stressed. I'm going to give this over to God. When Jess says, my future, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to give control to God. Like it's a mindset that you set for yourself. When Talia said that, it's a mindset that you set for yourself. Like God is greater than the emotions that I feel in this moment. Like, and I'm going to let my mind go first before my feelings, and how much of that is such a calming thing. It's weird when you say like you can shut off things, because I literally told myself at a point in time, I will not be ticklish anymore. And it worked for an incredibly long time. Like people would come up and tickle me and I'd go like, no, I'm not ticklish. And they'd go, what? I'm like, I'm not ticklish. And it worked. And that's such a great example that both of y'all gave. So thank you for joining us, Talia and Kaden. You guys are joining us on the post, yeah?
Yep.
So they'll be with us, and you guys can hang up now so you can get ready for the post. And so the final thing that I want to share with you guys is bye. Look how sad they are. We are going to be doing something new in the beginning of May. So join in on our live stream on Sunday, next Sunday, because if you don't pay attention, then you'll wonder what's going on. So that's number one. Number two, Mother's Day is coming. And you don't want to not get your mom something. So if you follow the link in the bio of our Instagram, you can actually, we as a church are on your team and we want to send something to your mom on your behalf. And it's absolutely free. So we will send them a package. It's going to be super nice and cute. And it will go to your mom's home. And we'll write in, handwritten, a message from you. And it's going to be awesome. So take advantage of that. It is absolutely free. And we will have our link in the bio of our Instagram. We'll also post it on our Facebook too, so you can take in on that. But love your moms well. All right. Jess, you have anything to say before we go?
We miss you. And celebrate your moms on Mother's Day. If she's around, make breakfast.
Yes. And if she's not around, FaceTime her or something. But breakfast is a good way. All right, guys. Hey, we love you. Get ready for the post. If you don't know what the post is our like after service hangout that we have on Zoom. I'm gonna post a meeting code, and all you need to do is jump into that meeting, and we will split you up and put you in your group. So it's all about discussion and catching up after this. So join us for the post that is happening in just 3 minutes. We love you guys. We miss you guys. And go without fear. Put God first, mind over emotions. And that's it. All right. Bye, y'all.